Hello everyone! Today we are transforming an entire ancient city, and I've never done anything like that before. Sure, my village was amazing, but what's a village compared to a city? Huh? The real question is, what was the ancient city actually made of? Was it stone? Bricks, or even quartz? Everyone seems to have their own opinions, but in this project we are taking a scientific approach. This looks horrible. Quartz will do. Alright, finding a place to build this should be fairly easy, right? Anyway, there was no way I was going to build all that terrain by hand, so it was finally time to learn World Edit. Choose a decently looking seed you want to transform, and then just use this command to turn snow into dirt. Quickly change the biome to make the grass look nice and fresh, and now the only thing that's left is just plant a lot of trees and bamboo by using a brush. Don't forget your G-mask though. And then casually ruin all your efforts by pasting the city in. Anyway, at this point, I was so excited to actually start building, so I began the process of transforming the center portal, which is the most important thing in the whole city. Definitely no pressure to mess up that one. I really wanted the city to look fresh and vibrant and full of life as it once was. Well, that is a long time ago, and that's why I tried to include a lot of greenery and water features in this build. And totally not because I just love overgrown style and just can't live without it, but jokes aside, it's just a great way to break up the monotony in almost any builder project, and that's what they do in real life cities as well. Anyway, and I don't know about you, but I love transforming things in the environment, so let's just paste most of the city back and fill in the gaps later. By the way, the goal of this project is not only to restore and transform the city, but also try to keep its original scale and architectural style, which can be a bit tricky, but I believe we can do it. The portal entrance area had a lot of columns and archers, so I could just save time and transform one of them. That worked out pretty well. And you can't convince me that those holes next to the big columns are not meant to be ponds. Like, look how perfect that looks. I also made small modifications to the main portal statue thingy, as I believe the walls around it were built much later, when the city had been already buried in the ground, so it doesn't make much sense to have them there. And now we finally got to the first actual house ruins, and that one was going to determine what all the other houses gonna look like. And I don't know, the longer I looked at some of the elements of the ancient city ruins, the more it reminded me of the real life ancient cities. Well, I get it, this house and this tower, just like everything in this city, they are missing a lot of parts. But I feel like it's quite plausible that before the disasters, the city was indeed quite bright. And not gonna lie, that tower really gave me chills. It was so hard to transform that one. There wasn't much left of the original structure, but those giant holes all over the building. And it's definitely not the last time I placed this tower somewhere else. So I kept working on the surrounding area and even started turning small ruins number 1 into a cozy house, which I think is just going to be a regular worker house as opposed to a potter maker house we've just built. Just look at that cozy furnace. But as you can tell by now, I love transforming the environment, so it reflects the history and the meaning of the builds. Just like this cozy garden in the backyard, and this sewer grate next to the pond. Anyway, so I used already existing art designs to make an adjacent entrance to the main portal thingy, and then I just placed those on an elevated platform, because otherwise it would feel kinda empty. And I also wanted to save the wall ruins to be an actual wall around the city later on. Needless to say, I went into this project with very poor planning. I decided to do everything on the go and had absolutely nothing pre-built, which to be fair could have been a complete disaster, but this approach allows me to show every creative decision I make, and it's just much more fun to watch. On the downside though, that building is marked as barracks in the game files, and I thought it was a temple. Fight me on this, but why would you have a little portal statue in the barracks? Temple is more like it. But there are a lot of unexplained things in the ancient city. Even some of the blocks found there make absolutely no sense unless you take into account this theory. A very long time ago, after completing their research, ancient builders were finally able to open a portal to another dimension. The distraction force released by the portal energy burst was so strong that its aftermath left the city in complete ruins and buried it deep underground. But little did they know that that was only the beginning of the horrors awaiting them in the darkness, as they heard the distant deadly roar of the warden. That was a bit creepy, but we are 15 hours into this project and we're just barely 10% done. That's the real horror. Anyway, I thought that now is just the perfect time to work on the new wall design, and the city has a lot of walls and I just can't keep up with them, alright? And this design is basically identical to the original deep slate one. Well, now that our wall is finally in place, I could start building the road outside the city and start terraforming the surroundings. And if you think that terraforming by hand is a painful experience, it definitely is, but it allows me to have a better control of elevation and the terrain around the city. And I personally just don't like building on flat terrain, and if there was one tip I could give you, please use elevation to your advantage. It can add so much coziness and complexity to your builds. For example, this is what this part of the city would look like without elevation, and in my opinion, it's a bit boring. Well, back to building, but at this point I really had to start thinking about what each and every house actually does in the city. Because even though ruins do provide some clues on what those buildings were used for, there is simply not enough variety to fill out the whole ancient city. And I'm sure that having all houses serve the same purpose would get old pretty fast, so I had to get creative. In addition to temples and ordinary houses, I started to give each structure its unique meaning. That's how we now have a farmer at the edge of the city and a pot maker in the center. I also got inspired by Italy and its abundance of drinking water fountains, so I decided to include one as well. Speaking of house specialties, this one didn't have one yet. And since we're building with an assumption that this city is in a warm climate, I thought, why don't we have a grape plantation and a winery? I mean, grape processing facility. Anyway, building that was so much fun, and here's a small design you can use as well. And if you want more ideas to spice up your builds, definitely check out my Instagram, where I share a lot of decorations just like this one. And the next on our reconstruction list is a nice house, which makes no sense once again. I refuse to believe that ice and pressure plates and levers could have survived that long underground, so I think someone else have put them there after the disaster. Honestly guys, these replay mode recordings are not giving the city any justice. Just look how amazing it looks in first person. Even this small part of the city makes you feel like you're stuck somewhere in the ancient past. And spoilers from editing Shera, this city is gonna look even crazier when it's done. Anyway, one of my favorite things to build is actually fishing houses. And this one even has a little lake in the backyard, alongside with a cute fishing tank in the front, where villagers can breed and store the fish before it's sold on the market. And I just couldn't resist building another small house to finish this part of the city. I don't know guys, everything has been going amazingly so far, but there's just one problem. I love procrastination. Look at me completely ignoring the whole left side of the city and just building the entrance. And to be fair, that entrance is one of the most iconic parts in the whole city, so it's kind of important anyway. But I wasn't exactly sure how I was gonna end this epic entrance. But in the end, I settled on a big water feature coming to a pond with a lot of greenery all around it. Because when in doubt, build trees and water. Thank me later. But to bring this project on a whole new level, we need to do this one crazy thing. Hello!
Hi!
Hey there.
This looks amazing.
This is unreal, by the way.
Thank you. I tried my best.
Yeah, so what do you need help with?
You know, just all in tears in the city. You've got this, right?
Hold up. I mean, you said this would be like 30 minutes, didn't you?
You two have fun. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye!
Wait.
Wait, did she say that?
Wait, the whole city?
Don't know what we signed up for, Dio.
Is she serious right now?
Well, thankfully, they didn't leave, and together we managed to tackle most of the finished houses, including the secret tunnel, alongside with a bunch of other Easter eggs for you to discover. And while the guys are finishing up a few other houses, it was time for me to continue building, well, the rest of the city. But you know what didn't help? Me losing all the footage of the market and the houses and the whole surrounding area, let's be honest. Not gonna lie, that was really upsetting, and now more than ever I had to be very careful not to lose any more footage. On the brighter side though, we have 1/4 of the city completely done, so it got me thinking, maybe it's a good idea to build the rest of the wall so we can see how big this thing actually is. And well, it's ginormous, it's bigger than I thought it was gonna be, and at that point I wasn't sure I was ever gonna finish it. Then I realized I had a lot of pre-built designs and I didn't really have to build everything from scratch anymore. And by using this technique, I could actually rebuild the whole city much faster than 3 weeks. But don't worry, I'm still gonna change up all the houses to fit in with the environment and focus even more on decorating and terraforming. I thought it would be really fun to reimagine this temple without the roof, especially with a lot more details around the build. Then I did a little bit of terraforming and pasted yet another house and finished up the left side with small arches and a water feature. And for this house, I decided to go with the idea of a little garden with a lot of flowers, greenery and pots. And of course there has to be a shop to sell the flowers, who wouldn't want to have one? And continuing with decorating, I tackled the whole left side of the temple and filled in all the little gaps with tons of decorations. As you can tell, I've been living my best life here, but that is still I saw this whole giant empty area with absolutely no ideas how to fill it all in. So I headed back into the ancient city for that much needed inspiration. Now, hundreds of years have passed after all the remaining survivors of great civilization had perished, and once bright and prosperous city has become a shadow of itself, and the mystery dark substance has spread all over the ruins, ready to alert any intruders. But even in this state, the city was a lucky find for any treasure hunter or an adventurer, only if they would dare to take it. Anyway, now what I'm trying to say is all these carpets and wooden structures and weird ice and everything that's kinda like stands out in the city, that was all built by the treasure hunters who tried to trick the warden so they can take all the valuables from the city. And that's why the ruins we see today look very different compared to the original ones. Well, that was enough procrastination, but after this little break, I realized our city still doesn't have a park where our citizens can rest after a long day of work. And of course, I wouldn't be sure if I just built the whole park right away, so I decided to focus on one little tiny house on the left instead. And even though I said I'm not gonna build or reconstruct any more houses, I couldn't resist to transform just one more. One of the biggest challenges of this project is to keep things different and exciting and fun, as after a while it gets kind of repetitive to build in the same style. And one way to do it is to play with space. And while the rest of the city is much more cramped and has very little space between houses, as opposed to a park, which is a large flat area with just trees and flowers. And such contrast really helps to break up the monotony and bring up some novelty. And it also very conveniently takes up a lot of space, so that's less building for me. I didn't tell you that. And now we are officially working on the second part of the city. And before I say anything else, look how adorable that portal is. It's easily the best part of the whole transformation. But jokes aside, I had an absolute blast working on this city, even though the style is very new to me and it was kinda hard to work with it. Left alone the fact that I really tried not to rebuild everything from scratch, which made this process even more difficult. And now there are just a few finishing touches left on the side of the city, like a small stony path leading to the temple and a cozy resting spot by the park, which finally concludes this whole area with this little fountain-like thing in the middle and a lot of spaces to just roam around and enjoy your day, whether that's fishing in the lake or just sitting on the bench under the palm trees. Anyway, I wanted to keep this part of the city very close to the original, so even though I have deleted all the buildings, don't worry, I'm gonna put them back. And finally having whole back side of the portal figured out feels awesome. That thing was bugging me so much. And I also have a brand new rule: when in doubt, build small houses and rails. I don't know why. And this time I've decided to mix things up, so I've pasted all the houses in and now we're gonna decorate them one by one. And when building this, I imagine this place to be a rich district in the city where only scientists and merchants could live. Besides, this is the only place with the direct access to the portal itself, thanks to this big road. At least, that's what was written in my notes, cause to be honest, it's been a year since I finished building the city, and I'm not really proud of that. But making this video was the most intimidating thing I've done on YouTube. I wanted it to be perfect, but this attitude only caused me to procrastinate, and all my attempts to make this video throughout the year ended in nothing. So I really hope you can learn from my mistake and understand that done is much better than imaginary perfection. Well, enough of that, but this part of the city couldn't turn out any cozier, with this big residential area and a tiny cozy market in the corner. And that is not counting this adorable garden with a well. Okay guys, this is easily my new favorite place in the whole city, but maybe just don't look inside. At this point, 75% of the city was already done, and it really felt like we have done everything. We have big market, a winery, a bunch of temples, and even a whole park. So there really wasn't much left for me to build. Well, at least that's what I thought at first, so I decided to start slow. I began working on the left side of the map as I already knew what's gonna go there. A small residential house on the left with a water feature right next to it. And then I decided to reconstruct yet another temple, but this time completely from scratch. I would say this one is the most accurate temple I've done so far. I simply replaced all deep slate with quartz and just placed a roof on top. Do you think that any of my transformations are accurate? Please let me know in the comments. By the way, if you want to see the city with your own eyes and play it in survival, there will be a download available on my Patreon, and remember, your support means the world to me. That's the only way I'm able to run this channel. Plus, you get to download everything I ever done. But please don't feel pressured, your love and support here helps just as much. But back to building, and this is a banner maker house, and they even have their own herd of sheep. And one of my favorite things to do when building is coming up with stories behind my builds. For example, this banner maker loves crazy banner designs, and he even has a secret basement where he hides them. And that house looks like an ordinary warehouse, but the owner loves his pet rabbits so much, so he has a bunch of carrots growing behind the building. But this is one of my favorite decorations yet. Those are actual fish farming ponds. How cool is that? And in this corner is a dye maker house, and as you can tell, this season red dye is in fashion. And that's why it has so many roses in the yard. These two houses were a bit tricky, but in the end I settled on a Fletcher house with the tiniest, coziest little yard ever, and a regular worker house, because, well, even my creativity has limits. Alright, and I'm just so tired. And after a little bit of terraforming and oblivious detailing, I was yet to realize that I was about to lose even more footage. Honestly, that stuff is so frustrating, I'm not even going to comment on it now. And unfortunately, it is what it is, but watching back this footage, I'm really not liking myself right now. There is not even one time when I'm building at the same spot for more than 10 minutes, it's actually hilarious. Except that it was an absolute nightmare to record afterwards. Nevertheless, the bigger house is an armorer or a toolsmith, I'm not sure which one yet, and the smaller one is some kind of diner with a cozy pool and a garden. I know, it's a bit of a stretch at this point. And don't worry, I am leaving signs inside the houses, so the guys know how to decorate it. Welcome to the very last day of building. I can't imagine that we actually got here. But what can be more appropriate for a corner next to the gate than a horse stable? And luckily, I love building those. I simply transformed the first floor of one of our basic houses and just added it a big spacious yard. So now it can fit in a lot of horses. Alright everyone, this is it. This is the very last house of the whole ancient city transformation. I honestly didn't believe I was ever gonna finish it, but thank you so much for watching, and let's see the results.